I played a lot of Pokemon games over the years, but there is one thing that I have never attempted before: a Pokemon Nuzlocke. I've watched countless videos of people taking on the exact same challenge, some becoming champions while others watch their entire teams fall apart. And after watching all those runs, I finally decided it was time for me to see if I could beat a Nuzlocke myself. But there's one twist. Instead of doing it in a traditional Pokemon game, I will be doing it in Minecraft using Cobblemon, which means that some of the rules have been slightly changed. Just like a normal Nuzlocke, if a Pokemon faints, it is considered dead and can never be used again. I can only catch the first Pokemon I encounter in each biome instead of each route. And all battles are played in set mode, meaning no free switches. So with that in mind, I loaded straight into Minecraft and entered the world of Cobblemon and started my very first Pokemon Nuzlocke. So, my adventure began in Torchlit Town, and before I did anything important, I spent time exploring the town. Then, the most important decision of the entire run came: my starter. I chose Torchic and named him Talon. With Torchic on my side, I gathered some basic supplies, crafted a few Cobblemon tools, and prepared for my first encounter. And my first encounter I found was a Mareep that I named Wooly. And just like that, our team was starting to come together. After feeling confident, I headed towards the Cherry Grove biome to catch my next Pokemon, and almost immediately I messed up. I found the Pokemon that I really wanted to catch, and instead I knocked it out. So yeah, not exactly a great start. Since that encounter was gone forever, I moved on and continued exploring. Along the way, I found a structure that looked promising, but only to spend several minutes searching and finding nothing. After that, I spent some time training in a nearby forest and eventually found my first trainer battle. Talon absolutely destroyed the competition and the poor guy's team. Both of the Pokemon went down instantly, and for a brief moment, I thought this challenge was going to be easy. But later, I found a Magikarp and caught it and named it Bubbles. At that time, it seemed like another encounter. I had absolutely no idea that Bubbles was eventually going to become one of the most important Pokemon on my entire team. While training, I got my first real scare of the challenge. One bad matchup almost cost me a Pokemon, and it was the first reminder that a single mistake could end the entire journey. My next encounter was a Teddy Ursa that I found in the forest biome. I caught it and named it Smokey, like Smokey and the Bear, and honestly, it was adorable. Not exactly a future champion, but adorable. After some grinding, Talon evolved into Combuskin, and the team was starting to look much stronger. With everyone leveled up, I began making my way over to the first gym. Along the journey, I somehow managed to wander into the wrong gym entirely. But I was already there, so I wasn't leaving there empty-handed. So I stole a crap ton of items and I continued on my way. After more battles and more training, several members of my team evolved, making me feel a lot better about my chances. So I flew over to the nearby Poketown, looted it, and basically took everything. Then I checked the Pokemart and headed back to the first gym. Finally, it was time to take on Faulkner. Leading with Combuskin, it suddenly seemed like a really bad idea. I panicked and switched into Wooly, and somehow it was the perfect decision. Wooly completely took over the battle. One by one, Faulkner's teams dropped until his final Pokemon remained. At that point, we basically won. And just like that, the battle was over. For my first ever gym battle, things could have not gone any better. I grabbed my badge and threw it into my Pokecase and started preparing for gym number 2. After leaving Faulkner's gym, I hopped on Bubbles and made my way over to the next city. Once I arrived, I set up a small base and started looking for more encounters. My first addition was a Slackoth that I caught named Pops. And at the time, this was an amazing encounter. Little did I know that he would eventually become one of my favorite Pokemon in the entire run. While I was exploring the nearby forest, I also found a Pokemon that I really wanted to catch, a Buzzwole, but I couldn't catch it and my dreams were crushed. Then I found a village and immediately looted everything that wasn't in the town. Then I tried to fly on Gyarados, but that didn't work, and I got to a dense birch forest where I finally found my next Pokemon, Aron. I caught it and named it Rusty. Then I head back to the Savannah biome and I added Phanpy, named Dumbo, to the team. The squad's looking pretty stacked. Unfortunately, while training, I almost nearly lost another Pokemon. The mistake didn't cost me this time, but it was becoming very clear I was playing carelessly and eventually something was going to go wrong. After that close call, I went back into the jungle and caught a Scyther, adding even more Pokemon to the roster. Then came the grind, and it was a lot of grinding, but Wooly evolved into Ampharos and Rusty evolved into Larion. The team was finally getting stronger, and before long, it was time to take on the second gym. I led with Wooly, hoping Ampharos could carry the fight, and for the most part, he did. Wooly blasted through multiple members of the gym, and he looked completely unstoppable, but the battle started getting a little too close for comfort. After taking some damage, I decided not to push my luck. Instead, I went into Rusty and safely finished the battle. The final Pokemon went down, and the second badge was ours. 2 gyms down, 0 deaths, and honestly, our team was looking absolutely unstoppable. In our second gym badge, it was time to make our journey towards gym number 3. Along the way, I stumbled across a very interesting house. But before heading inside, I had 2 huge evolutions, Talon the Blaziken and Pops the Slacking. At this point, our team was becoming ridiculously strong. Naturally, the first thing I did was walk into the random house. Inside, I found Ash's mom, who apparently wanted to battle. After destroying her in a battle, I headed upstairs and came face to face with Ash himself. And somehow, this random side quest turned into one of the sketchiest battles of the entire run. Bubbles was almost able to take down Charizard. Things immediately started becoming messy after that. Venusaur nearly knocked Bubbles out, forcing me to play much more carefully than I wanted to. Then Charizard came back up and almost took Rusty out. Well, we survived, but looking back, that was definitely one of the few questionable decisions. Hopefully, this won't come back to haunt me later. Anyways, after surviving the encounter with the world's most aggressive family, I finally arrived to the 3rd gym and set my waypoint. Before challenging the gym leader, I wanted to get a few more encounters. So, in the Ice Village, I caught a Piloswine named Crux. In the nearby mountain biome, I caught a Go-Goat named Lily. And since my team was definitely lacking grass types, Lily was an awesome solution. So, I tried to catch a Pineco in the Taiga biome, but it had other plans and blew up. So, that encounter disappeared before I even had the chance to catch it. At this point, it was time for me to set up a home base for this world because we're playing Minecraft and we need a place to store all of our items. So I returned to the mountains after gathering the materials and started building what would become my permanent base for the rest of the challenge. And moving my supplies and doing a little bit of decorating, the base was finally complete. I even built a functioning toilet, just in case. After settling in, I spent some time grinding levels and got Crux to Mamoswine. With the team fully prepared, it was time to challenge the 3rd gym. I led with Bubbles, and honestly, this battle was a clean sweep. Bubbles completely steamrolled the first 3 Pokemon without breaking a sweat. By the time the gym leader's final Pokemon entered the field, it was basically over. I switched into Lily to finish things off and secured the 3rd gym badges. 3 badges down and still no deaths. And I was feeling unstoppable. Surely nothing bad could happen, right? As a reward for defeating the 3rd gym, I unlocked one of the most useful mechanics in the game, terrestrialization, and that would become a very important thing moving forward. Now it was time to battle gym number 4. Before going there, I added a few more encounters to the team. At the swamp biome, I caught a Skunky named Smelly, and at the dark forest biome, I caught an Impidimp named Jester. Looking back, Jester would end up becoming one of the most important Pokemon in this run. After that, I hopped on Bubbles and flew all the way towards the 4th gym. And along the way, I found a few diamonds, which was very handy. Once I arrived at the gym, I realized that I couldn't fully take advantage of terrestrialization yet. I still need a Terra Orb. So instead of battling the gym leader right away, I immediately turned around and went back to grinding. While farming the materials I needed, I actually found a shiny Bunnelby. I caught it and named it Lola and added it to the collection. Eventually, after what felt like forever, I gathered everything I needed to and crafted my Terra Orb. Now it was time to fight gym number 4. Now it was time to battle gym number 4. The battle started well. Bubbles took down the leader's opening Pokemon with an early advantage. Then he sent out Gengar. I switched into Pops and immediately regretted it. In one attack, it completely wiped out Pops in one shot. My heart absolutely sank. I can't believe Pops died, but no time to grieve right now. So after that, Wooly came in and took down Gengar, keeping the run alive. From there, Bubbles fought through for the rest of the gym leader's team and barely survived several dangerous moments. Then came the final Pokemon, Sableye, which I thought would be no problem. Then I sent in Cruz and immediately watched history repeat itself. Crux went down, and just like Pops, 2 deaths, 1 battle. What was supposed to be an easy gym was a lot harder than I thought. And technically we won and the 4th badge was ours, but standing there after the battle, it wasn't a victory. We lost Pops and we lost Crux, 2 Pokemon that I was hoping was going to carry this run. After the disaster from gym number 4, I needed to rebuild my team. So I hopped on Bubbles and flew all the way over to a desert biome to search for a new encounter. There, I found Trapinch, and they named it Chomps. On the journey home, I stumbled across an observatory and managed to pick up a Z-move. Did I actually use it? Nope. And if that wasn't cool enough for one trip, I also found myself a shiny Pokemon. I named it Leafy and promptly never used it. With the team slowly recovering from the losses of Pops and Crux, it was time to get back to grinding. After several evolutions and a lot of training, I finally felt ready to challenge the 5th gym. I led with Jester and immediately terrestrialized. The opening Pokemon went down without much trouble, giving us the early advantage. Then the gym leader sent out Poliwrath. Rather than risk Jester, I switched into Wooly, who handled the matchup perfectly. Then Tho came in and forced another switch. I brought back in Bubbles and expecting a difficult fight. But then the gym leader made a big mistake. Instead of attacking me, he switched into another Pokemon. This let Bubbles set up, and this gave us the free opportunity. Giving my Gyarados a free turn was a horrible idea, and after setting up, Bubbles was completely ready to take over the battle and just completely swept through the rest of the gym leader's Pokemon full-heartedly. And just like that, the 5th gym badge was ours. After I beat the 5th gym leader, I headed out and gathered a crap ton of obsidian to build a nether portal, unlocking us an entirely new set of encounters. The moment I entered the nether, I started searching for additions to the roster. Before long, I caught a Honedge named Blade, and then I caught a Venipede named Sting, and during all this I also caught a Larvesta named Torchy, but I lost the footage. So, you're just going to have to trust that Torchy existed. Another lengthy training session, and the team was looking better than ever. Blade evolved, Torchy evolved, and everyone was starting to fill out the holes left by Pops and Crux, which meant there's still one thing we gotta do: challenge gym number 6. With this steel-type battle, he led with Bronzong. I led with Dumbo, but immediately realized I had a much better answer, so I switched into Talon. Then he switched into Skarmory, which was perfect. I terrestrialized and unleashed a devastating blaze kick that knocked Skarmory out. The battle was off to a great start, and unfortunately, it would not stay that way. What followed was a constant battle of switches and prediction. Dumbo tanked a Thunderbolt that he was immune to. Torchy stepped and secured a critical knockout. Bubbles continued doing what Bubbles always does and carries huge portions of the fight. Eventually, we worked our way down to most of the gym leader's team. Victory finally fell in reach, but then everything fell apart. Bronzong returned to the field. I switched Talon back in, expecting him to finish the battle, just like he did many times before, but instead, he went down, and just like that, Talon was dead. But I had to finish the battle. As painful as it was, I kept going. The rest of the team rallied together. Blade stepped up to deal with Bronzong, and Torchy finished off Steelix. And somehow, it didn't feel like we won. The badge was ours, but there was no excitement. Just relief that we had survived at a terrible cost. At least, for beating the 6th gym leader, we did unlock Mega Evolution. But the challenge wasn't over yet. We still have 2 more gym leaders left. So, I evolved Scyther into Scizor, and giving us another powerful team member to help fill out the massive hole that Talon had left behind. Next, I prepared for Mega Evolution by mining all the resources and gathering all the materials and spending way too much time collecting everything I needed. Eventually, I crafted the necessary items and created an Aggron Knight for Rusty. Then came for one of the coolest moments in the run. Rusty evolved into Aggron, and then I immediately Mega Evolved him for the very first time. And I ain't gonna lie, Mega Aggron is absolutely sick. And at the time, Blade evolved into Angus-Slash, making our team stronger than ever. After all the losses we suffered, it felt like the team was finally recovering. With all these updates, it was time to challenge the 7th gym. The battle began off with Bubbles facing off against a Mamoswine. Despite tanking a very heavy hit, Bubbles fired back with a powerful waterfall and immediately knocked it out. One threat down. Then the gym leader responded by sending out Villanexu. This time I switched into Scizor, and Scizor tanked easily in Icicle's crash, like an absolute champion. But then I had a good idea. Because it didn't take a lot of damage, I Sword Dance 3 times and completely took out every single Pokemon, and it was no issue. He became a monster, and it was an easy gym battle. And just like that, we secured our 7th gym badge, and everything that had happened, it felt good to finally get one easy victory, and only one gym to remain. But before challenging the final gym, I wanted to get as many encounters as possible. I first found a Gibble, which I brought into a cave to catch, and I named him Beast. Then I headed to an ocean biome and caught another encounter, an Inkay named Flipped. Then I completed a Terra raid with a Gengar and named it Rasputia. Not long after that, I found an Onix named Rocky, and at this point, I was collecting Pokemon like trading cards. While exploring, I found some max mushrooms that will come in handy later. Then I stumbled across a giant Pokemon structure and marked it with a waypoint for future exploration. The discoveries kept coming. While I was in a jungle temple, I found something incredibly valuable. Inside one of the chests was an ancient DNA. At the time, I didn't realize how important this would be, but it's super important. And I also found another Z move that I never used. Then, after doing all of that, there was only one thing left to do, and that was challenge the 8th gym leader. So, I hopped into the Nether and made my way all the way back through the portal and started searching. And after forever, I finally found the gym. With that, it was time for my final badge. The battle opened with Jester facing Gyarados. Knowing how dangerous Gyarados can be, I immediately terastallized, but Jester barely managed to survive and secure the knockout. Then the gym leader next sent out Salamence. At this point, I knew exactly who to bring in, Bubbles, the MVP of the entire run. Salamence put a crap ton of pressure on us, forcing me to heal and play carefully. But once I found it open, I started setting up Dragon Dances. And once Bubbles got all set up, Salamence fell to one Ice Fang. Then Dragonite entered the battle. Same strategy, same result. Dragonite went down, then Kingdra went down, and 2 attacks later, we did it. 8 gyms, countless encounters, several heartbreaking losses, and somehow, despite all of our decisions, we made it to the end. Now that we beat the gym challenge, the real challenge is about to begin. Now that we've defeated the 8th gym leader, it's finally time that we've unlocked Dynamaxing. After beating the 8th gym, we went to the Badlands and found an Iron Treads that we named Spark, and somehow we caught it. Then I found Team Rocket's base and absolutely swept the floor with every single trainer. Until I went against Archer and I lost Spark and Dumbo. But after beating General Archer, we found the secret trainer and defeated them, and they gave us a very special item to create Mewtwo. So I went back to base and made a fossil machine and started the process on creating Mewtwo. And then, once it was done, I got Faith the Mewtwo. Okay, now that we got the Eye of Enders, it is time that we actually build our Pokemon team for the Elite Four. So this is what I had in mind. The first Pokemon I picked was Bubbles, and the reason I picked Bubbles is because with the use of Dragon Dance and Terra Waterfalls, it would make an absolute unit on the battlefield. Then I picked Jester. The reason I picked Jester is because it can actually Dynamax, and it can set up every single light screen and every single reflect that we would need it to set up to make sure our team is safe against physical and special attacks. Then I picked Torchy because Quiver Dance and Fire Pledge and Giga Drain is a absolutely crazy special attack demon with some easy win capabilities. Then I picked Blade for a mix of defense and special attack combination. So if I ever needed to, I can play offense or defense or right in the middle. Then I picked everyone's favorite pseudo-legendary, Beast, with a life orb boosted attacks. This guy isn't just fast, but he's dangerous and willing to sleep if it is necessary. Last but not least, we have our clean sweeper, it was Faith with the ability to Mega Evolve. And with its moveset plus Recover, it can heal itself on the battlefield while OHKOing every single other Pokemon. After that, I grabbed all my Eyes of Ender and hopped on Gyarados and flew all the way over to where the stronghold was. Then, I put all the eyes into the portal frame and jumped in. And when I was in, I caught my final Pokemon block the Porygon. And yes, I used the Master Ball. Then I took one last ride on Gyarados, all the way over to the Elite Four for a final battle to become champion. And everything that we've worked so hard to win for starts now. Then I made my way up to the second floor and prepared for my first Elite Four battle. My opponent led with Xatu, and I led with Jester. The battle opened perfectly. Jester immediately took down Xatu and gave us early momentum. Eventually, I Dynamaxed Jester and started pulling some serious pressure on them. Slowking fell, Executor fell, and when everything got dangerous, Blade stepped in to clean up the fight. Before long, her final Pokemon dropped, and one Elite Four member down, and there were 3 to go. Next up was Koga, and honestly this battle was terrifying. He opened up with a Ultra Beast that I don't know how to pronounce, and it is one of the scariest Pokemon we've seen all run. I led Jester with a Reflect, knowing I would need all the advantages I could get. Then what followed was a constant battle of positioning. Koga kept switching, I kept switching, no one wanted to give up momentum. Eventually I brought in Bubbles and started applying pressure, but Koga's team refused to go down easy. That's when I made the decision to switch in Faith and Mega Evolve. Once Faith entered the battlefield, things finally started to turn in our favor. Venomoth went down, but then Koga sent in his Mega Beedrill, which was an absolute menace. One wrong turn and Faith was gone. Rather than risk my strongest Pokemon, I switched into Blade. Blade barely survived a drill run and fired back with a massive Shadow Ball. From there, the rest of the team was set up. Bubbles cleaned up several threats, Torchy killed the Ultra Beast, and after a long battle, Koga went down. 2 Elite Four members down, and only 2 remained. The third Elite Four member looked scary on paper, but ended up being one of the cleanest fights in the entire run. I led with Faith against Pangoro. Immediately, I made a super risky play and fired off an Aura Sphere. To my surprise, Pangoro survived, but instead of going for a Dark-type move, it went for Rock Slide. This mistake gave me everything I needed. Pangoro went down, and Lucario entered the field. So I switched into Torchy. From there, the battle was over. Torchy set up, Torchy got stronger, and they completely swept the rest of that Elite Four members team. 3 Elite Four members down, and 1 remained. The final member specialized in Dark types. She led with Absol, I led with Jester, and despite taking 1 super effective hit, Jester held on long enough to Dynamax and immediately took control of the battle. Absol fell, then Honchkrow fell. Next came Houndoom. I switched into Beast, who instantly took out Houndoom with a powerful Earthquake. Then came in Weavile, and after making another questionable decision, I switched into Blade. Looking back, it wasn't my smartest moment, but Blade bailed me out and knocked out Weavile before things could go horribly wrong. After that, I brought in Torchy and Terrestrialize and finished off her 2 remaining Pokemon. The final Elite Four member was defeated, and suddenly there was only 1 battle left. 1 battle that separated us from becoming champion. Now I stood 1 battle away from beating my first Nuzlocke. So I stepped into the champions room, and Lance was waiting for me, the strongest trainer of the region. The final obstacle standing between me and victory. The battle began with Faith facing Lance's Aerodactyl, and immediately Faith delivered a statement. 1 Ice Beam, 1 Knockout, and Aerodactyl was gone. Then Lance sent in his signature Mega Gyarados. For the first time in this battle, things were getting tense. We traded heavy damage back and forth, and then Faith finally secured an Aura Sphere, knocking it out. So far, so good. Then he sent out Lugia and everything changed. Lugia was terrifying. Its bulk made it incredibly difficult to take down, and I knew we couldn't afford to lose Faith early, so I switched into Jester. And for several turns, Jester did everything possible to keep the run alive, setting up support and taking damage and allowing me to slowly chip Lugia down. Eventually, Jester couldn't take it anymore, so we switched back into Faith, letting him finish Lugia off. Then came Salamence. One Ice Beam later, Salamence was gone too. At this point, victory felt close. But then Lance sent out Baxcalibur, and this thing was a monster. Without warning, it one-shot Faith from full health. My Mega Mewtwo gone. Just like that. Suddenly, I had no idea if we were going to win. I tried sending out Jester and had already lost him. The pressure was building. The run was hanging by a thread, so I made a risky play. I sent in Beast, and I clicked Stone Edge, an 80% accurate move. And if I missed that attack, the entire battle would fall apart. The move connected, and somehow Baxcalibur went down. Then Lance sent in his final Pokemon, Dragonite. Beast managed to lead with some crucial damage, but then Dragonite fought back with an Ice Beam. I was convinced that Beast was finished, but somehow, someway, he survived. Just enough health remaining to fire off one final attack. Dragonite fell, and we did it. We became champion. My first ever Pokemon Nuzlocke was complete. And Lance, since you killed some of my Pokemon, consider this payback. When this challenge started, I had no idea how hard this challenge would have been. I wasn't a Pokemon expert, I didn't have perfect strategies, and I definitely made some really bad decisions. But somehow, despite all that, we made it to the end. We lost Pops, Crux, Dumbo, Spark, and Jester, and we also lost Talon. But that is what makes a Nuzlocke special. Every victory has a cost, every Pokemon matters, and every loss becomes a part of the story.